what do you think can be done, if anything, to improve the racing here at Monaco? Or is this a situation where we just need to accept that this track is more on the circuit or more on the calendar as a historic circuit for historic purposes, and it's not really about the racing, it's about the glamour and prestige of Monaco?
As well as we've been saying for many years now, these F1 cars have gotten so big and they've outgrown the streets of Monaco. I think the only thing that they can really do to improve the racing is potentially change the layout. But, then you'll have all the purists out there, flipping out and saying, no, you can't do that. That would hurt tradition and all of that. But I honestly think that could probably be the only way that they can improve the racing at Monaco, or maybe in future F1 regulation, maybe try to make the cars a little bit smaller. But I don't think that's the direction that they want to go in. But overall, I don't really think there's much more you can do besides changing the circuit or trying to make the car smaller in a future regulations package. But overall, I know there's been a lot of debate between, the fans saying, like, should we continue to go to Monaco, like for the prestige and principality of this historical circuit, and it's definitely quite a debate, or we just need to accept that this is Monaco is. If they're not going to improve, if they're not going to adjust the car for this circuit, or any other things like changing the track, I think we probably just need to accept that this is just Monaco. We're just going to be here for the prestige, the history, and we just need to accept that that this is just going to be a procession type of race every single year.
For the longest time, I feel Monaco has just been kept for the prestige, and Formula One was happy with that. But that can only go so far, because if this has just become the annual response to Monaco, what do you thought of the race? It was procession. This year, next level, since we had no pit stops, the strategy was gone. I'll be open if F1 said, hey, we do a lot for Monaco. It's not exactly on the level. No track similar to Monaco could get on the F1 calendar nowadays. Monaco is sort of exempt. Maybe they need to look into a different package for Monaco. One of the things, of course, they were on the softest tires spectrum. Could they use even more softer tires specifically made to Monaco, as Blue Moon 95 suggested? Potentially, but that's going to be something that a rule exemption for Monaco needs to be made, because we can only do so much for Monaco to accommodate it on the calendar. When it comes to the race, the prestige, it can only go so far. I think it gets to the point. This is why I kept thinking about Las Vegas. It's a new Liberty Media F1. More thinking Las Vegas could be the bigger and better version of Monaco. You have the casino, more accessible, bigger crowd, a little bit easier compared to Monaco, where such a small principality, you try to accommodate so many people, but it is just, the sport has grown and changed to a level where it's just so hard and the racing is not delivering. I think you have to start looking at some changes, whether it's at the circuit. I know I've heard a couple of years ago the idea of using another neighborhood to make almost like a Joker lap type, but I feel that'd be too radically different to try to encourage passing. We know they pave the road every year. I'm just always surprised they still have that one bump after the casino. If they get rid of that, maybe that can encourage more pass. I don't think anybody's going to be too upset that, oh, you lost the tradition because the bump is gone. We need some changes on Monaco, because I do feel the calls for change are going to keep growing and growing if we do nothing but keep saying this is our biggest event of the year, even though the best part of it is qualifying, because, well, in this year, the top 10 didn't change at all. It could happen again if you have a repeat situation and you did no changes or adjustment for 2025.
Go back and forth on this, because to your point, Joe, I think qualifying for Monaco is arguably the best qualifying session of a year. It's absolutely stunning to see those images of how close those drivers are getting towards the barriers, and seeing the cars dance through the streets of Monaco, I think is absolutely sensational to watch, and really separates the good from the great. And that's why Charles Leclerc totally deserves what he experienced yesterday, winning his home race finally, the Monaco Grand Prix. But again, then you get to Sunday, and it's really, unless you have an engine failure or somebody makes a mistake, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's kind of a parade, and those things are less likely to happen when you're not pushing the car to the limits because of the tire compounds and what happened on the opening lap, kind of dictating the strategy for everybody. So again, to the point about the tires, think it was 2018, where we had super softs, ultra softs, and hyper softs. So the hardest tire compound was called super soft. I mean, maybe that's something we need to consider bringing back, like a super ultra hyper soft compound lineup for these tires to maybe encourage more pit stops. But again, to Kobe's point as well, I think the only thing you can do is look at future regulations and try to make the cars smaller than they are now and similar in size to what they used to be. I think that would still only go so far because of how fast the cars are now. And I think that you probably shouldn't be thinking about your regulations based on just one race out of 24 on the calendar. So it's a difficult situation. I see both sides of it. I understand the people that think this race doesn't hold as much prestige or value as it used to. But again, I also think you have to honor tradition. You have to honor the prestige and history of this track and this circuit and this country and what it means to Formula One. So I see it both ways, but I do think that if there is anything we can do to make a change here and try to make the racing just even a little bit better, it's worth considering here.
Yeah, but and I wanted to add one more point before we move on to the next thing.
Sure.
And I know we've talked about this in previous shows discussing F1, but I think the red flag situation, I think that needs to change as well, because I know it was obviously going to be a parade anywhere around Monaco, but you don't see this in any other racing series in the world where you can change tires during the red flag, and then you basically nobody had to come in again, and you just rode around and there was no strategy, and it took away what little bit of strategy we could have had in this race. And also think that hurt as well, because when you're just riding around just preserving tires until the end, nobody's going to be pushing, and there's obviously going to be very, very little room for overtaken. So I think not just at Monaco, just all F1 races in general, I think it's really crazy that you can service the car during the red flag, and it just takes away all the strategy.
Yeah, totally agree. That's something that I've never understood. We saw it come up in the 2021 championship fight. I think even Jimmy Johnson was tweeting and saying it was mind blown that you could change tires under red, because obviously you can't do it in NASCAR or any other series that I can think of. So, yeah, that's another rule that I think would maybe, not just for Monaco, obviously, but for everywhere, I'd like to see F1 revisit that.